Welcome to our world. Won't you come on in? Waiting just for you. Welcome to our world.
What is today's topic, Jim?
Today's topic.
No, actually, okay, go ahead. Sorry.
Today's topic is the first in a series
Oh my
of
word.
podcasts
No.
that we will have
on
investing.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I need you to say it like you said it in the trailer.
Investing.
And then I said
It
no,
will be
and then
investing.
you said yes. Exactly. What?
Series?
Stop saying it like that. That makes it. Here's the issue, okay? When you no, I will not. When you say this series, it makes it sound like we have a plan, and we don't have a plan. I want to make that really clear. There is no plan. We do not have a structured.
We have a plan that this will be a series. That's it. We don't have the series yet.
Do we have concepts of a plan?
We have concepts of a plan. Yes. Yes.
Okay.
That's exactly what we have.
So more specifically, investing, which
well,
thing
today,
in our series.
On the first episode.
Oh, that just, you know what? Hold on. That just made me think of another grammar grievance. Go ahead.
Can you mark this down for our next grievances? People interrupting me when I'm talking about our podcast series dealing with investing.
Go ahead. I'm listening.
All right. The first.
As our hundreds of viewers across the country.
You need to fit put crickets in here right now.
I will not.
Well, actually, you already used those for the grammar episodes.
Investing.
Okay.
That's how you said it in the
Here
trailer.
we go. No, this will be speaking specifically about passive investing or the lazy man's investing.
Passive income.
Passive income.
You say the lazy man's
passive
investing. I say the smart man's.
Well, there you go.
Investing.
There you go. Smart. Yep. So it's both.
Okay. Let's get into it.
Yeah. Let's get into it. You need to put some bumper music right here. I don't know, specific to. Oh, how about change rattling? Yeah, that sounds good.
I'm not doing
the eBay sound that it makes when you sell something,
like the ka-ching.
Which, by the way,
cash register.
eBay sales are not passive income.
Okay, let's begin with
what is.
Can you explain what active versus passive income, not investing?
Right.
Active versus passive income.
Well, here's the thing, and it's not. There's not necessarily a specific, like, this is passive, this is not passive, right? Passive income, for the most part, requires, once it's set up at least, requires very little work on your part. Basically, every month, every week, every year, whatever it is, you get money deposited into your account. It's like magic.
And it's kind of like a spectrum. So you can, with some of the things we'll talk about, you have as much, involvement in these things as you want to. There are things that you can make 100% passive. Once they're set up and you have systems in place, you literally just get the money.
Well,
and that's it.
And the simplest example of that is a savings account, right?
Right, sure, yes.
Savings account is passive income. You put money in the account, you get interest on it every however often it could be it could be daily, it could be monthly, it could be annually. Mm-hmm. All right, so that concludes our episode.
Open a savings account, everyone. Whereas active investing or active income, sorry, we're still not talking specifically about investing. Active income is your day job.
Right, it could be a job.
It's something that you have to physically or whatever participate in order to get the money. You can't just sit on the sidelines and watch. And this is, like I said, a spectrum. So you have things that are 100% active, 100% passive, and then you have a ton of stuff in the middle.
Right. And for the most part, things that are considered passive investing are things that you do little or no work.
Right. I would say most of the passive income, passive investing that I am familiar with is like 90%, 85 to 90% actually passive, where you're doing work 10 to 15% of the time just to like keep things
Right.
in place and all that.
Right. So other examples of passive investing, right? So the easiest, simplest example is a savings account.
Mm-hmm.
You could have like your 401k or an IRA at work that you basically just are saying, I want this all in stocks.
Yes.
Or I want this all in bonds or whatever. And it goes in there and you pretty much, you hardly ever look at it. You hardly ever change it. It just kind of on autopilot.
Yeah. I think to make the transition then from the difference, obviously income versus investing, those are two different things. So to make the jump from those, like from one thing to the next, using the stocks example, passive investing is exactly what you just said, like your 401k, where it goes into stuff. You never look at it. You don't have any say in what happens in that. It literally all happens in the background. You don't do anything. Right. So that would be an example of passive investing. Whereas same thing with stocks in general, you have people that are like day traders.
Right.
That is extremely active investing. That's where active. They're sitting in front of their computer all day and their job is to, figure out what to take out and put in and all that.
They're
that
putting
is
a lot of work into it. I mean,
yes.
and it's so really it is exactly what it says. Passive is passive, active is active.
The
more active you are in whatever activity, the more it's not passive investing.
Right. And I just wanted to use that specific example with the same thing, stocks, to show that it's like those are two sides of the spectrum or
now,
whatever.
In between would be, let's say you're someone who you're not day trading, but you're looking at your investment portfolio every week.
Sure.
Okay. You're still kind of active then, right? If you're looking at it every month, you're somewhere in between. So you kind of decide. It's one of those things. It's kind of like a job, right? If you have a job that you really like, then you don't mind doing the work. So you make the call as to, well, do you consider it active, or is that just fun for you to check, to check, like I said, your stocks or whatever every week? Kind of another category would be like government bonds or T-bills, right? Now, I never knew like anything about those really up until maybe a year ago, maybe a little over a year ago. But when inflation was really bad, and then stocks were you didn't know what stocks were going to do, but the interest rates you're getting on savings accounts went up to above 5%. And I started watching videos related to T-bills specifically, right? And I never realized how simple it is to get these T-bills. Okay, so they're treasury bills, right? So they're federally backed by the government, which even now it's still considered pretty much the safest investment you can have, right? It's like pretty much no risk. The government, the U.S. government has never defaulted on its debt.
I wanna stop right here, and maybe we'll put a disclaimer in the beginning of this episode. This is not investment advice. We are not financial advisors. We're talking on personal experience. Please do not take any of what we're saying as financial advice. We are just telling you
you're on your own
how things work. Carry on.
Right.
Yeah, we need that.
If you're going to do
purposes.
that, right? If you're actually thinking about any of this, you should learn. Take some time and learn more about it.
There are so many, especially in today's world, there are so many resources that you can be learning about this stuff. You have books, podcasts, websites, AI. You can ask whatever AI chatbot about this kind of stuff.
Pretty much all the major AIs have gotten really good at this. And, AI, don't get me wrong, if you get into specifics, sometimes AI can give you bad information. But for the most part, with general investing advice, AI is pretty good.
Yeah.
Anyway, with T-bills, the thing is, first of all, they're really easy to buy. You set up an account on treasury.gov, okay? You link it to your bank account that you're going to use to pay for any T-bills or government bonds that you buy.
Today's episode is sponsored by treasury.gov.
Yeah.
Just kidding.
But
the federal government.
For T-bills, so T-bills are the shortest amount of time that you could invest money, right? Let's say shortest term. That's the word I was looking for.
I thought you'd get there.
4-letter word that just eluded me. So anyway, it can go from anywhere from 4 weeks up to, I think, 26 weeks, or maybe they have a 52-week. It might go up to a year. But you can do like a 4-week T-bill. You wind up getting a little bit better interest than you get at a typical savings account, right? And it's 4 weeks. So It's not something you would have. It can't be like really an emergency fund for money that you would need right away. But especially if you're the kind of person who doesn't want to risk putting money in stocks, it's like a really good option, especially now. Like, I think, the interest rates are now below 5% on those, but it's still, like I said, maybe at least 1/4% higher, maybe 0.3, 0.4% higher than you get in a savings account. So if you had, and I think you can buy as little as $100 worth, and it can go up, obviously. Well, there's probably no limit on the upper end, but it's simple. It's not hard to do. It's really easy. And then what happens is, let's say if you bought $1,000 4-week T-bill, every 4 weeks, it will deposit the interest into your account, whichever account you say to. So that becomes your passive income, right?
So with these, you are loaning the government money.
Right.
And that is why, because I feel like a lot of people don't understand what I buy this and then the government gives me money. That doesn't make any sense.
You
It's like
you are literally loaning the government money.
Government money.
'Cause keep in mind, China used to basically constantly be buying government securities, right?
Yes.
They pretty much stopped, or at least reduced drastically, the amount of government securities that they buy anymore. European countries and other countries still do it somewhat, but because the government now spends somewhere around $2 trillion more per year than it takes in, everyone should be really concerned about this.
We could have a whole episode about this.
Yeah, that would be a better episode than this one. This one's a horrible episode.
Yeah, just stop listening to this one. Come back when we have that one.
No, but the government needs the money. And here's what happens, right? So I forget if it's every week or every few days, they issue these, they say, okay, we're going to sell these 4-week government T-bills on such and such a day. So they have an auction, and that's what determines what the interest rate's going to be. If they know they need to sell, I don't know, $500 billion worth of these, and they can't sell them all, what that means is they're going to have to offer a higher interest rate next time.
Okay.
So
let us move on from this, because that's a lot. Another form of passive investing, real estate. Let's talk about it.
Yep.
What is it you want? Real estate.
So what had happened was, back during the pandemic, I don't remember how, but somehow I got into listening to Bigger Pockets, is what it's called. The company is called. And the
podcast. Their podcast.
Yeah. I mean, they have a million different podcasts now, right. But I found their website, and then they had a podcast. I was reading articles and all this stuff about making money with real estate. And it all seemed very simple to me. Why are more people not doing this? And I feel like more people aren't doing it because they haven't done, genuinely, I think the reason is because they haven't done the research to understand how easy it is. Because here's the thing. And this is not just a podcast about real estate, but there are so many ways to get into investing in real estate, half of them without your own money. So you don't need, $1 million or $50,000 or $10,000 to invest and to start investing in real estate. And I feel like a lot of people don't understand that. And even when I've tried to explain to people that you don't need money to invest in real estate, it still does not check out. What?
No, I feel like to be that kind of a person, though, you have to be almost like a salesman. You have to be able to sell yourself, right? Because you need to get an investor, and you need to say, I'll do the work.
You do, but
right.
Even on that end, you don't need to be the salesperson. You need to have a friend who's the salesperson that you guys go in on something together.
Right.
Like there are so many ways to get into something like this, but then there's also just probably the most passive thing you could possibly do is invest in like a REIT. And right. Then you're not even...
But what is that?
A real estate investment trust, right. Where it's basically, I mean, there are a bunch of different kinds, but it's like a bundle of real estate properties, and they pay out to shareholders and all this stuff.
So it's kind of like buying a stock or buying an index fund.
Anyway, but so during the pandemic, I'm reading about all this, and I, long story short, convinced my father that we should get a vacation rental. And so we did. So we have one here in Claremont, Florida. You can ask us for the address if you'd like to. It's up on Verbo if you'd like to stay at our humble abode. But This is not an advertisement for that, obviously. This is just because we're talking about
This
this.
portion of the broadcast brought to you by J&S Vacations.
By J&S Vacations, that's what we're called. This is kind of what we were talking about earlier. In the beginning, when we went through this, there is so much work that we did. And I think, to be fair, a lot of how much effort and work we put into it is indicative of us as people. Like, we
Right.
obviously weren't okay having a vacation home that was not, nearly perfect. We wanted it to be what we would want going into a
Right.
vacation home. So we put a lot of time and effort, and you put a lot of money into it in the beginning. Obviously, I really haven't contributed. So this is very passive for me, although I'm also not getting any money. This is anyway. So, so what am I doing?
So it's passive from
It's just
all angles, completely passive.
But so in the beginning, we were definitely doing a lot. There was a lot more work. It was heavy, active investing at that point.
Mhm.
And now we're at the point where, and you're obviously, I'm sure you have a ton to say about this.
I do.
You're obviously still, we're paying the mortgage and all that. And so it's not like
Right.
we're not
Well-
even seeing a ton of money. But compared to how much work in the beginning, it is, like I'm saying, like 85% passive at this point.
Here's
what we're
here's
doing.
the thing. My take on it at this point with rental property, right?
Yes.
There are different, like you said before, about things being on a spectrum as far as active versus passive.
Mm-hmm.
If you have a rental property that's a normal rental property where you get a tenant and they sign a year
Like
lease,
a long-term
and-
rental?
yes, then that is pretty passive. That's pretty far in that end. Short-term rental, like a vacation rental,
Well,
it can still okay. If you're gonna she's looking at me like skeptical about
because if you're
No.
like the landlord,
If
you're
you're-
dealing with those issues and stuff. So you're not actually.
I'm saying, but you could have someone manage your properties if you wanted. So again, you could have it be kind of as passive as you want, right?
Mhm.
If you said, well, no, I don't want to pay somebody to manage my properties. I don't want to pay a maintenance guy to fix a leak. I can do all of that. Well, then technically you could, but it's like anything. Then you kind of own your job then, right?
It's kind of with anything, and real estate specifically, you're very much it's a constant decision between time versus money.
And that, so now getting to the short-term rental, first of all, I think a lot of people, when they first hear about it, they think like, oh my God, this is great. Like you said, why isn't everyone doing this, right? I don't think people realize with short-term rentals how much work and or money that goes into it, right? So in other words, with our short-term rental, we have a property manager, okay? We get an exterminator every month. We get bed bug protection, whatever you call it, every month. We have pool service, takes care of everything with the pool. We have cleaners that go in and, every single time between guests. And we do, when someone books, we do charge them for cleaning, but we charge them like, I think right now, $75 less than what we actually pay.
Which maybe isn't smart.
And it's, and there's just a lot of regular ongoing maintenance. That's the regular monthly, cutting the grass. That's the regular monthly maintenance. But when you, go ahead.
Here's the thing, because you and I had, and we had this discussion in the beginning even, and I was cleaning the rental house for a while and all of that stuff, right? So you and I had the discussion in the beginning of all of it, how much were we actually going to do? And because the house that we wound up buying was actually already a short-term rental property for these other people. And so it already had a property manager. And so we just kept that same property manager. We never had to go through the process of finding a property manager, having to manage it ourselves for a period of time or anything.
Or finding cleaners then, or
no,
right?
because so he had everything
he already had a
set up.
maintenance guy.
But so my point is, you and I had in the beginning talked about just kind of doing all of that ourselves. And then it was the time versus money kind of thing.
Mhm.
And so I feel like over time and I don't know how you feel about it. We've gotten more passive, but also probably more expensive because we're not doing
definitely more expensive.
Like you think about, for example, when stuff gets broken at the house, like when there was like the pool bar, like the handlebar going into the pool and like the thing in the pool, the filter or whatever and all that stuff.
Right.
And you think about when our property manager texts or calls you and is like, hey, this is broken. Do you want me to send the maintenance guy in? And you're like, well, how much is it going to be? And it's like $150 for the simplest thing.
Right.
And you say, no, I'm just going to do it myself.
And it
because it's not
depends.
worth it.
And this is the point. It depends what it is, right? And I
Right.
feel like, there are certain things I know I can do it, right? I've done it before. It's not a big deal, right? So those, a lot of times I'll do those. There are other things that I think, how hard can that be? I can probably do that. And they're the ones that are kind of like, it's kind of a tough call sometimes because like anything, the first time you do it,
Mm-hmm.
it's always harder. So there's kind of the unknown. We had someone that just like put a big dent in the wall. I have no idea what happened, but we had to pay for that. And it was a couple $100.
Mm-hmm.
Now the insurance hopefully is going to, well, they are paying for that, but they cut the check to the wrong name. So we've got to fix that. Anyway, I didn't tell you about that.
Anyway.
I guess, well, and here's a perfect example, right? Even in this case, it's not passive.
No,
A
but
short-term rental property, it's...
no, but here's
I don't
what
think you
I'm
can do a good job and have it be passive.
But that's what I'm trying to explain. It's not passive for you because of the type of person you are. Because if you reached a point where, because you obviously have the monthly expenses that you're talking about and then the mortgage still. And so it's not, there's not as much money coming in, obviously, as
this
I
past year, there's
understand. So
none.
what I'm saying is, if you reach the point where the mortgage is paid off and you're just paying the monthly stuff and any random stuff that comes up, this is a pretty
it'd be
good
nice. It'd be nice.
But so my point is, you, as we've said, you are as active in these situations as you would like to be. You want to be involved because...
Well, because that's kind of the way that I am.
But that's what I'm
here's
saying.
The thing. I think for someone to be really, really successful with rental property, they have
disagree.
to be... No, you didn't. You don't know what you're disagreeing with yet.
You're right. Okay, go ahead. But I bet
someone
you
to be really successful with real estate, they can't do the work themselves. They have to be the kind of person.
Okay, then I agree.
That's my point. They have to be the kind of person who wants to be hands off, wants to have someone to do everything. They want the property manager to handle all the stuff with the property. They want to get a CPA to manage their books. They want a lawyer to do all this.
And so what I'm saying is, at that point, which is where a lot of people find success with short-term rentals, is when they reach that point where all of their processes are in place.
Right.
They trust all of the people in the positions and they just take a step back.
Right.
And when stuff comes in, and I'm sure it's difficult to like make that transition if you're already more of an active person in the situation.
Yeah.
But once the stuff is in place, the ideal is you take a step back, property manager lets you know this is broken, maintenance guy's going to fix it, and this is going to be on your bill this month. And you're like, okay, done.
I think getting to that point requires work up front, though. Right?
I've said that.
But what I'm saying is, when you have a mortgage on the property and you have people doing all of that stuff that needs to be done, you're not making a lot of money. I mean, one of the big advantages of rental property, real estate, is that over time, in most cases, the property value goes up. Right. So you kind of have that equity in the property. And at some point later on, if you sell it, maybe you wind up making a lot of money. A lot of times people do that with their personal home, where they live in the house for years. They pay the mortgage off. Now they go to sell it and it's worth 3 times what they paid for it. Right. Which is great. Well, obviously, if you have, instead of 1 property, you have 2, that's better. If you have 10, that's really good, right?
Mm-hmm.
But while you still have a mortgage on the property, you're not going to be making thousands of dollars a month. Maybe you make $100 a month or $200 a month, or maybe $500 a month. But unless you do a lot of work to get to that point, that may not happen, right?
Yeah.
But I agree. If this could be a thing, it has to be like a business. It's either something you're doing just because it's fun and you want to do the work yourself, or from the beginning, it's a business.
I mean, I completely agree. It's the thing is, because you think about, if we were much more active in this, you'd be making more money right now. Let's say we really only had the necessities, which would be the pool people, because we're not going to do that ourselves. That's a whole thing.
No, you could do that yourself. I don't even think that's that.
All right, fine.
I'm talking about just cleaning the pool, skimming the pool and stuff like that.
I'm not talking about cleaning.
I'm
talking about like them when they come in, they don't just clean the pool. They like do the filter and like they do, I don't know.
I'm saying the regular weekly maintenance, we could do that. But anyway, I know that's
okay.
like-
My whole point though is if we literally had just decided we're going to do every single thing ourselves, we don't need a property manager. Get out of here. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
You'd be making more money, but you would also be working a lot more. It would not
Definitely.
be because right now, I mean, however you feel about it, it is passive invest on the side of passive investing.
Right.
And
Yeah.
passive
Yeah,
income.
definitely. But you
Which
see me.
is why it's on our passive income investing episode.
Yeah, and which we're kind of getting off track, and we're almost like that part should be a separate episode just about the rental house. I forgot what I was going to say.
Here's the thing. I think the issue is with this specifically is
I know what it was.
what? Go ahead.
No, you know the way this is. Every time my phone goes off,
Yes.
and it's it's a different. I can tell when it's a message coming from the people at the rental house. I kind of like cringe a little bit because I'm always worried, is there an issue? And in a lot of cases, I do this a lot more than I did in the beginning. I just redirect the message to
Exactly.
our property manager, which is the way it should be.
Because here's another thing. We're talking about this being passive. To be passive,
I care
we wouldn't
too
even
much.
Okay, so that's what I was going to say before you remembered what you were going to say, was that I underestimated in the beginning of all this how controlling, not in a bad way. People say that negatively. I'm not saying it negatively. Just like how much control you want over everything having to do with it. Like, you know what I mean? I don't have to go into detail here. But what?
It's the perfectionist thing, right?
I know, but
because
that's
if you're
obviously
a perfectionist, it's really hard.
It is really
It's
hard,
really
and
hard
I get
to let
that.
go.
But I think what I had always seen the vision as was getting to the point where it's 100% passive. And so
moving on, get another one.
Yeah,
Right.
right. And so I think for me, it's like when I don't, what you're talking about, like when a message comes in and stuff, obviously, like if I'm not with you and I see a message came in, because that's what I was going to say. Because the other thing is we on Verbo and all that, our property manager doesn't handle those messages. We do. We don't have like a property management channel or anything. So that's another thing that people that are 100% passive, they don't even, they're not even the people that you talk to on Verbo or on Airbnb or whatever. You're talking to their property manager. You're not actually talking to
Right.
the owners.
Right.
And so that's what I'm talking about, getting to that point where it is like
That's
100% passive.
yeah.
We shouldn't even be the people that are on that thing. And
Right.
I'm not, I mean,
Well,
I don't, what?
And no, I agree with you. And the thing is, I was going to say, when we first got the property, and this goes for anyone if they're thinking about doing this. I think the idea of going in, and if you want to do work in the beginning to kind of help get the property ready.
That was really fun. We did a lot of fun stuff.
It kind
in
of
the
was,
beginning.
and that way you can do it the way you
The
want.
house was really ugly.
And you can decide, yeah, and you could decide what you want to do yourself and what you want someone else to do. But that part I wouldn't mind, right? If it's like, then you move on, you get another one and you do that. But then, like you said, then you hand everything off.
Yes.
And it has to be people you can trust. And
Yes.
I have a hard time with that just because, I mean, one thing with vacation rentals, your rating is everything,
Yeah.
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 So
People don't understand that and this probably goes for really any industry where they're asking for a rating. If you think you're giving someone a good rating by giving them 4 out of 5 stars or, 9 out of 10 or 8 out of 10, that is not a good rating. If it's not 5 out of 5, that is a bad rating.
Right.
And I feel like a lot of people,
It's hard to let people know that.
It's hard to let people know that in a nice
sound like
way.
you're begging.
And I feel like I didn't even really realize that until we started doing this.
Right.
I probably on things have given people a 4 out of 5 thinking, oh, that's great. A 4 out of 5, as we've noted before on this podcast, is only 80%. You think about getting like an 80 on a test in school. You're passing. It's like whatever. You obviously understand the subject matter, but it's not an A.
Yeah.
It's not.
And I think that's one of the reasons I have trouble letting go with this. And like, I was just over there yesterday, right? Because I knew we were having people coming in and they're like a longer short-term rental in this case, because they're going to be here for almost a month.
Right.
And so I kind of wanted to make sure there were no major issues. Everything
Right.
was kind of as perfect as it could be.
Okay, but here's a good example for that. We live like 45 minutes away from this house, so we can do that. The people that had the house before us, they live
New
now
York.
in New York or
Yeah.
lived at the time that we bought the house. So they are the perfect example of being 100% passive. They didn't do anything with it.
Yeah, and they didn't. This person
And the house looked awful. So I'm not saying
they I don't think they really, and it didn't, the funny thing is it didn't have that bad ratings. It still had
No, but so
4
this
stars.
is my point, because you talk about wanting to see everything in between, and I completely understand that, because I am also a perfectionist in that way.
Right.
But I also think there's something to be said for two things. Why are you the person that knows what's best for the house, number one, as opposed to like our property manager who's been doing this for years? That's the first thing.
Right.
And then number two, let's say you go hands off and you don't go in between, and then we get a bad review because of something that happened.
Right.
Obviously, we can't get that review taken off or anything. How do we fix the situation? If it's the cleaners, we ask for new cleaners. If
Right.
it's just the property manager, we go through the work of finding a new property manager.
Right.
Like if you want it to be passive, you have to make it passive.
Right.
And
I
I think
agree.
that's the point where you're at, where I'm trying to
Yeah.
get you to like be passive, because especially at the point when you were talking about, with the mortgage and all that, you're obviously not making, the money on this that you would like to be making, but you're still putting the effort in.
Right.
As though, I
Right.
said you can have time or money. You can't have both. And
Yeah.
you're kind of not having either right now, because you're still choosing to be really active in it when
Well,
it should be passive.
Yeah, and even active as in, oh wait, we didn't, if we have a week or two we didn't rent and it's only a couple weeks away,
Mm-hmm.
right? Then I kind of am agonizing over that,
Right.
worrying about it, right?
Right.
Yeah, I got to get out of that. But,
Yeah. Because it
let's
should
not
be passive.
We almost should make this part a separate episode. I'm not even kidding.
Nope, that's it. This is the end. This is
okay.
the end of our
Okay.
Pats. You have any other passive?
No, it's like
income?
everything else. I guess it's as passive or active as you want to make it.
But it should be passive. People get into
it
real
should
estate on this side of real estate, on like the short-term rentals, and even, sure, if you want to talk long-term rentals and all, people get into this side of real estate for the passive aspect of it. There are much more active things in real estate, like house flipping and all that kind
Right.
of stuff, which maybe we'll talk about in a future episode, where you are directly doing something
Right.
all the time.
Right.
And, you just like being busy, and that's what you do. And you make a ton of money. You flip a house, you can make like
If you're good.
150,000 on a flip
Yeah.
or something. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
those are active though. That's you doing all of the work pretty
Right.
much. The other side of real estate is passive, and that's the side that most people want to be.
Well, that's what I could say. The people that become really, really successful at this
Mm-hmm.
are passive. You
Yes.
can't, you could do it with 1, 2, maybe 3.
Yeah.
You can't be active and
With
have
all of
like
them.
10,
No.
10 rentals. You can't do
No,
it.
you cannot.
So that's it. So
Investing.
the only other thing I'll say is it's good. I think it's like everything else with investing, though. It's good to have a mix, right? It's good, especially when you get close to retirement. Okay,
Mhm.
which no matter how anyone looks at it, everyone's getting closer every day to retirement, right?
And
or
to
where they
death.
maybe want to, and to death. Yes. So and hopefully you get to retirement before death.
Really.
But it's really good to have income coming in from multiple
Mhm.
places.
Yes.
It's,
They say, this was when I was like 10 years old that I read this or heard this somewhere, that the average millionaire has 7 streams of income. And at the time, obviously, I did not understand a lot about income and investing.
Right.
And I was like, that doesn't even make sense. I can't even think of 7 forms of income. This is a lie. And now I obviously realize. What?
No, it's true.
So I feel like people don't think, I think a lot of people are so set on the kind of older American dream of you find a 9-to-5 that you don't hate, and then you just live your life and you invest in your 401k and you and
I mean,
there's
investing
nothing
in
wrong
and that's
you
still passive.
lived your
I mean,
life like
that's-
that. I'm
yeah.
not saying there's anything wrong necessarily
Oh.
with that, but there are other options that people just don't educate
And to be
themselves enough
clear,
know what-
right? If I was going back and doing it all over again, I would have. I don't know exactly at what point, but when I got to the point where I would have had enough money, and I know, yeah, you could technically do it without money and all that. I don't think I would have done that, but I would have tried to get a rental property sooner.
yeah.
Maybe not a short-term rental, maybe just a regular rental.
Yeah.
Because my point is, with the biggest benefit to me with rental property is once it's paid off, and
You're just making the money.
when you have this property now, that's your net worth right there. Is like now all of a
Exactly.
sudden you're worth $1 million or $2 million.
Everybody go buy a house. We'll see you on Friday. Have a great week.
Good night. Okay, I think that was pretty good. What do you think?
It's pretty good. All right, save it and let's roll right into the next one.
We have another one to do?
Yeah, it's whatever you
Okay.
want it to be.
Well, I haven't stopped it yet because I figured you'd have some additional outtakes. Yeah. Should I just keep recording? We'll just split it.
Oh yeah, I could do that.
Pretty
That's
risky,
fine.
though.
Why is that risky?
I don't know. If something happens, I have to save it. I can't go through this again.
What if you didn't actually